Hello and welcome to the West Yorkshire Football Show. It's our weekly roundup as we check in with all our teams across the region. I'm Stephen Brown, and on tonight's show, we're going to be discussing all things Leeds United with Jason Booker, as there's more player exits at Ellen Road. We'll also be hearing from Stephen Downs, who's not with us, but he sent us a video of his thoughts on everything happening with Huddersfield Town at the moment. We should say, actually, Steve is away on his jollies, isn't he, in Scarborough? And he's actually sent us a picture in as well of him having a fine time over there. So there we go. That's Steve. And if you notice on his shoulder there, unfortunately, Steve is having a bit of an issue with seagulls at the minute. But apart from that, he seems to be having a jolly old time. But yeah, we'll be checking in with Steve a little bit later on as well. He sent us a nice little video in, so we'll still get a bit of Huddersfield Town content on the show as usual. We've got Gaz here as well to chat all things Bradford City, and also Lewis Sale to round up all of the non-league action. Plus, my esteemed co-host Christopher Bell as well on the show. And we might also feature some England chat as well if we can be bothered to. If we can face up to that, we'll see. We'll see how we get on. Now, if you are watching us on YouTube, please do like the video and subscribe to the channel. And if you're watching along on X, please do like and retweet us and get involved by letting us know your thoughts on what we're discussing. Okay, so we're going to start off the show looking at Leeds United. Jason, it feels like a bit of a while since we had a chat about Leeds, actually, isn't it? But what's going on, as always, probably the biggest news at the moment, and I think we're still waiting for some kind of announcement. It does seem to be rumbling on for a while, but Glenn Kamara exiting Leeds, and this is a bit of an odd one, really, Jason. One that, to be honest, didn't really see coming as the season ended last year. He seemed a firm part of Leeds' plans. I actually really like Kamara as a player. I can't believe some of the Kamara slander that we've seen in the fan base. Just pointing to his assists and his goals, I think doesn't paint the picture of what Kamara does at all. I think technically he's on another level to the Championship, but it seems like he's going to be out the door. We're going to double our money. Jason, what do you make of it, and also the kind of reaction that it's got as well?
I think it's the big difference between the fan that watches the football and understands what's happening usually in build-up, I will say, and the fan that just watches the ball go in the back of the net. And I don't mean that kind of disparagingly. It sounds like I'm being patronising, but I do think there is two types of football fan. Like, genuinely, I think there is some people that turn up at the game or watch a game on TV and just watch the ball cross into the box and go in the back of the net and they celebrate. And that's fine. Like, you can watch a game like that. But Glenn Kamara isn't that kind of player that you will ever really praise if that's how you watch the game. He's just not. His work out of possession is really underrated. He's very strong in the midfield, and his work in keeping hold of possession, rotating the way. Certainly, the way that we played last season under Daniel Farke was very patient. He's got this kind of tag of a side-to-side merchant, and that is part of his game, but it's an important part of the way that we played last season. Kamara was often the player that led the pass to the assist. So he was the pass before the assist. And again, that just kind of gets lost. Sure, could he have shot more often? Yeah. And I understand that was annoying to some fans. He'd find himself in some positions and he would never just put his foot through the ball and shoot. He probably could have had 2 or 3 really easy goals last season, really, if you're thinking back where he didn't need to make that extra pass. But there's also several occasions where he did make that extra pass and it led to a goal. And that just kind of gets forgotten. People are saying, he didn't get any assists last season. He did. He got 4. From a more of a deep line playmaker role as well. So for me, I think the slander is criminal. I think we'll find it extremely difficult to replace his ability for 5 million, which is probably the market that we're going to be fishing in when we're selling him for 10 million euros, 8.5 million pounds. So, but from a business sense, I will say I think it makes sense. We've doubled his money. It allows the P&R situation to eradicate itself a little bit and help with that. And I also do question whether he ever a Daniel Farke signing. We heard about not much slipped through the net last season, but the Glenn Kamara deal did. It rumbled on for about 3 or 4 weeks, and we ended up signing him the day before deadline day. And I think it was really late in the window anyway. And I kind of always felt, I wonder whether he actually was the first choice signing. I think that's what we're seeing. I think we'll see a replacement. I don't think Rothwell is the replacement for Glenn Kamara. I think he's a replacement for Archie Gray, really, as an option within the squad in that position. I think we'll see somebody come in to replace him, mate. So I'm not worried by it, but at the same time, I'm not one of these fans that's going to be, oh, we're always crappy, we're never good enough.
Yeah, you get quite a few of them, don't you? You mentioned him there, Joe Rothwell as well, coming in on loan from Bournemouth, another Bournemouth loanee we're getting in. What do you make of that move? Again, kind of mixed reaction from the fan base. Some seeing its qualities. This is kind of an experienced Championship player, and does have a goal in him. I think he scored Southampton's goal of the season last year. But where do you kind of rate that signing? How do you think it'll impact? Is this you've mentioned not a replacement for Kamara, but, kind of how do you think he'll feature in this team?
A Southampton fan really made me chuckle the other day after we signed him. He responded with, not the kind of player that you need in your squad if you want to get promoted. And I just replied back with, well, he was in your squad 3 months ago when you got promoted. Like, people just don't make any sense. And I mean, again, fans want to be... It's not a shiny signing. It's not, but it's a necessary signing that you need to make if you want to have a squad capable of getting promoted. Joe Rothwell's shown through last season, came on loan in January, only started 4 games, 4 goals, 16 appearances in total. He made a significant involvement to Southampton. He also got promoted with Bournemouth, not last season, but the season before. And at Blackburn, he was one of probably the most sought-after midfielders in the division at the time. At mid-20s, 24, 25, he was really well thought of at Blackburn. And that's why Bournemouth ended up signing him. So I think it's a signing that just makes so much sense. We went into the playoff final last season with no centre midfielder on the bench. We had Archie Gray at right back. Sure, he could have fit in there and we could have done something to swap it around. But in losing Archie, we've replaced him with an experienced Championship midfielder that is probably going to be okay being on the bench sometimes as well. It's a great option to bring on. And, we didn't have any goals from midfield last season. That was a serious criticism of the side. There was no goals, zero goals from a midfielder. Joe Rothwell will give us that. He will shoot from distance. So I'm happy with it. I'm not happy with it if he's a direct replacement for Kamara to be playing 40 games. I've got to just say that I'm not. Like, if Joe Rothwell ends up being the out-and-out starter in that midfield, I'd be a bit concerned. But as an option to come in for 20 starts and, play a part off the bench, delighted with it, to be honest.
We're we're on the 15th of July. We're halfway through the month. Pre-season's kicking into high gear. European Championship is over. I guess this is where it's going to go up a level. Friendlies are going to be starting soon. Where do you think the squad is as a whole, Jason? Are you kind of happy at the moment? Are you just kind of being patient to see what the 49ers have got up the sleeves? Obviously, if Kamara, which we expect, does leave, you're looking at him and Archie Gray have gone in this window. That's 2 huge components of the team last year, two players that racked up, 80 odd appearances between them both. I mean, where is your thoughts on where that squad is stacking up at the moment, and what would you like to see get done, as well as what you've just mentioned there as well?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think there's right now the fan base is really split in worry and panic from one half, and the other half is, look, let's just relax. It's only early. There's plenty of time to get things done. We're trusting the 49ers are going to make signings. All we've got to work off is last summer, and the summer overall was a success. The transfer window was a success. So right now, I'm comfortable that they're doing the right things. I think they could have sold Somerville for under their value if they'd have wanted to before the PSR deadline, and they didn't. They decided to go with selling Archie Gray for above or what their value was. So given that that's the case, I have trust in them that they're going to sort this situation out. Now, we have to right now take into consideration the fact that Brendan Aronson's come back, Max Verber's come back, and Rasmus Christensen have all come back. Right now, they are 3 additions to this squad. They are. Like, nobody can argue that. Now, if they end up going out, then sure, we've got to replace them. But as it stands, this squad is actually stronger. Yeah, and including Glenn Kamara in going out in that. We've ended up accruing £50 million worth of transfer and only £5 million on the books going out in terms of the £5 million that we paid for Glenn Kamara, right? So the PSR situation has been improved. We've got plenty of time to sort this situation out. And if we go into the start of the season with this squad as it is, with the likes of Somerville, Rutter still in the squad, I can't see how people can be disappointed with that. Verba would arguably go into the side as the best centre back in the division. You know, he's highly rated Austrian international alongside Joe Rodon. Where do you even play Pascal Struijk, who some would argue is the best centre back in the division? No, some Leeds fans would say that. So, you know, I know it looks like we're probably going to sign Jayden Bogle. I think that'll go through. I know we're going to come to that, but I think that'll be a deal that ends up happening. Arguably the best right back in the division. So I'm not stressed by it yet. Yet is the point, because I think there's so many moving parts that are going on with this. I made the point to Lou that last week or the week before that we'd be one of the busiest teams in the whole transfer window in this country, and I still think that stands. You can feel it every day. All these moving parts are going on. We've got so many gaps right now that need sorting. You know, even if you consider just the players that are leaving on a free. You know, nobody's talking about Liam Cooper needing replacing, Jamie Shackleton, you know, Sam Greenwood's gone out. But what I will say is the majority of the squad from last season is still intact. It's only Glenn Kamara and Archie Gray. It's only 2 players. Yeah, now don't get me wrong, big parts, but Archie needed replacing anyway. He shouldn't be going into the start of this season as a starting first choice right back. That's where he played last season. And Glenn Kamara, you know, arguably you could say has been replaced in Joe Rothwell, a more suited player for a Daniel Farke system, but I think he'll get replaced as well. So really, with Verba, Rasmus and Aronson up on what we were last season. So I just think we just need to USA is my feeling. I'm not overly concerned about it yet. Depends on what starts happening. You know, I know we're going to come on to Gnonto, which has kind of now broken the last hour. I don't even know if you've seen it or not.
yeah. I literally, because we have a little private chat and WhatsApp group, and you mentioned about throwing Gnonto in there. Do you want to just let us know? Because I've kind of done a quick, brief search on Twitter, and I can see that he's linked with Everton. What's happening there? Are we getting closer to potentially Gnonto leaving, or does it look as if there's some movement going on there, Jace?
So, well, I mean, from what I can see, because right now it just seems as if the journalists are miles off it, and that it seems to go for any Leeds United news. And, excuse me, all the sources are kind of coming from people within the know, and whether you trust the source or not. And don't get me wrong, that the online world can go wild with that sometimes, but once some people get a series of things correct, you have to give it some credence. And L Bobble, which is the Twitter handle, the Everton kind of in the know person, has come out this evening and basically said a deal has been agreed. Well, a deal is on the table. It's likely to get agreed with Everton. They've come back in after being turned away last summer. Rumours has it it's going to be around 22 million. Personally, I'd snap your hand off at it. I would. I know that Basel is Basel in it. Were it Basel?
Yeah.
Club, yeah.
Was it Basel?
Don't feel right. No. Zurich.
Yeah. There you go, Zurich. Yeah.
I just don't know why. It just feels wrong. Anyway, they're getting a significant percentage of the deal. I think it's rumoured to be 35 or 40%. So that is going to be a considerable amount of whatever we get. But the facts are is that, and I said this to you before, a lot of Leeds fans won't want to hear it, but outside of a few games here or there, Gnonto's always really flattered to deceive for me. He was the rose in a real thorn bush in the Premier League, and we kind of held on to 5 or so performances where he set the world alight. I think people hold him to a higher esteem because he's an Italian international, but he made them appearances in a time where Italian football was all over the place. I mean, he was playing first team football while he was playing in Switzerland at 17, 18-year-old. He was part of that Italian squad. He was never really at that level. So I'm not overly bothered by it, if I'm totally honest with you. But I will say again, replacing him is going to be extremely difficult. In the Championship, you can't go out and replace him for 6-7 million quid to the level that he probably does give you. My opinion, I think Dan James is a more than perfect replacement for him week in, week out at this level. I think Dan James is actually more effective in the Championship than Wilfried Gnonto is. So again, I'm okay with it, but it depends on what we're doing with the funds. The 49ers promised us that the monies that came in would be reinvested back in the side. They've got to go out and show us that. And I've seen David Cresswell there mentioning about Jayden Bogle. You know, at the end of the day, for a 23-year-old fullback that played 37 times in the Premier League last season, if they want 7 million, we pay him 7 million. It doesn't matter whether he's got 12 months left on his contract or not. If that's the fee that it's going to take to go and get him, and he's your man, let's not have a Max Aarons situation from last season where we lost him at the last minute, because we all know he was the man that Daniel Farke wanted. That deal was done. Go make it happen. I think it'll happen somewhere around 5 or 6 million quid, if I'm honest. But yeah, that's my opinion on it.
Good stuff. Killian, thanks for your comments. Bizarre business from the 49ers, and he's also added the balance sheets will look better after promotion, but to do that, you need to hold on to your better players. And I think probably what some fans are worried about is if you start to lose kind of, when you looked at that squad last year, Somerville and Rutter, and they seem like ridiculous players to be in a championship team. And I guess if you lose them players, you're losing a bit of the magic out of the team. But then again, you're in the championship, aren't you? So it's difficult, isn't it, really?
This is what you get for missing out on promotion.
Yeah.
We're a championship club. And the facts are, for a long time, we've been a championship club. We have this idea in our mind that we're a Premier League club, but we're not. There's a lot of this generation with the fan base that have never even seen us in the Premier League. Don't get me wrong, that apart from obviously the last 3 years, fleetingly, that the stature in which we've got, it can be a Premier League team, but you've got to earn it. And while we're not there, the players are going to be more open to leaving. The monies that are in, on offer, it's a short career for footballers. They might not get these opportunities for these moves again. So, we have to deal with the landscape the way that it is. Archie Gray would not have left for Spurs, regardless of the money that came in. If we went up last season, he wouldn't, because he'd have had the platform to be able to build on. He'd have been playing week in, week out, guaranteed. He'd have been able to do it at his boyhood club, and we wouldn't have needed a PSR buffer of 40 million quid for a homegrown talent. It's as simple as that. So for these fans that are saying, I'm glad that we didn't go up, it's just BS. You can't complain about this now. I think it's a balancing act to what's going on right now. You're not going to see Jorginho Rutter go out, because Jorginho Rutter has got too much PSR weighing on our side. Nobody's going to pay enough to make it worthwhile for us, because the 49ers don't need the money. It's not like we need this money in the bank. You're talking about a multi-billionaire organization in the 49ers. The problem is on PSR, on paper, right now we can't rebuild a squad because we can't spend anything. So I get it. And that's why you're going to probably see Verber only go for a certain amount. You know what I mean? Because Verber, we paid 8 million quid for. It doesn't make sense to sell him unless the profit attached to it is significant.
No.
Same for Rasmus. Same for Brendan Aronson. Brendan Aronson is only back at Leeds this season because on paper it makes no sense to sell him, because people would only be, clubs would only be prepared to pay 10, 15 million quid for him. And on the PSR books, we've still probably got £20 million worth of transfer. So it makes no sense.
No, indeed. A bit of a left field one, but one that we wanted to kind of include in our Leeds United chat. Jason, talk to me about Max Dean, a name from obviously the youth ranks at Leeds, made a bit of a splash, and now he's found himself over in the Belgian league. Yeah,
it's a funny one. Gaz might be able to chip in with this as well, because obviously he was playing in League Two last season, but it's a weird one for me with Max Dean, because when he was playing, obviously in the 21s for Leeds, he did stand out, but he stood out as a hustle-bustle striker. He was forever pressing. He was just that kind of player. He would score goals from mistakes from defenders. He'd be ahead of the keeper at a back pass, and he'd tap one in from 2 yards. He was that kind of player. And I always kind of hoped that he would progress through, but he never got a chance, did he, at first team level? He was never even involved off the bench or anything. He wasn't even part of the squad, really. When there were times where there were gaps, and you probably could say he could have been there, when Pat were injured and things like that. So he obviously decided, I would say I can't forget his name now, the ginger-haired attacking midfielder that went to Swindon. Why can't I think of his name?
McKinstry.
No, not McKinstry. God, what's his name now? Scottish. Not McKinstry went up north. Anyway, they're very similar in terms of the position within the thinkings at Leeds, and they were both kind of hoping to expect to push on. And Maxine decided to go out to League Two, and he obviously made a bit of a storm last season, didn't he? He played extremely well, scored a lot of goals. But I find the recruitment of this really strange, that Toulouse came in for him, and then McGurk. That's who I was after, McGurk last season, because McGurk was absolutely tearing it up in our 23s last season, and then he ended up going on a permanent transfer to Swindon. It was just a strange one. But yeah, coming back to Maxine, like Toulouse were in for him. Then Genk all of a sudden, Genk came in for him out of nowhere. And it's like, well, why are these clubs looking at this transfer for 1.5 million, but our League One and Championship teams aren't? Because the levels you would have thought he's going to go and play European football over there. So what
is it a recruitment thing? Is it like they have some kind of recruitment data model and he's hitting certain parameters and it flags up that maybe some of these kind of League One Championship teams don't have? I don't know. He must be hitting something, mustn't he? Or there must be some marker that he's kind of is hitting there.
I mean, I'm guessing the figure that MK Dons have put on this transfer is probably around 750,000, and they've said to Ghent and Toulouse, look, we owe Leeds 50% of this. You're going to have to double the transfer because that's what we want. So if we're selling him, you got to pay what we want, and then you're going to have to pay that also to Leeds as well, if that makes sense. Yeah. So I'm guessing that the inflated figure maybe is because of that transfer fee, but to these clubs, it's probably a gamble worth taking. It's one of them that literally could work out that he ends up not playing a single game this season and is back on loan in League One within 12 months. It's a real funny one for me. I honestly don't know what his ceiling is because I've only ever seen him at 23's level. Like I said, Gaz might be able to tell us a little bit more.
All I remember about it really, Jay, is when we played against him early in the season, he the MK Dons fans were saying that he gets a lot of chances and he misses them. And I get the impression that as the season went on, he started converting them chances. So it was almost like it was a progression for him. When I saw him, when we played against them, because we played against them in the Papa John's as well. I think it was the Papa John's as well as twice in the league. And he got a lot of chances and missed them. But his movement was obviously good. He was getting in the right position. He's still young. He's got age on his side. He's obviously seen the potential. And if he has developed as the season's gone on, they're seeing that he can develop again next year. So, yeah, I see why he's gone. And you're probably right about the fee, because that's when it's that sort of amount and he's going to Belgium, like you said, he's gone to Belgium. I was surprised he went to Belgium, to be honest. They've done, like you said, that's probably what they've done. MK Dons said, look, we want this, so you're going to have to pay double it because Leeds are going to take 50% of it.
You see, his ceiling is questionable as well, because he went to MK Dons to be with Mark Jackson, obviously, who was the under-23s manager at Leeds. There's an argument to say that perhaps he wouldn't have left Leeds at all at that time, maybe not permanently, if he wasn't going to follow Mark Jackson there. And he also signed for a League One team at the time. So it is a tricky one to fully understand. I just find it odd that a lower championship, or maybe like a Rotherham, somebody like that wouldn't have come in with 1.3 million and kept him over here. But maybe they did, and maybe that's just not been reported, and these moves have obviously kind of blown them out of the water. I don't know. It's just, I can't wait to see how he's going to do. I really can't wait to see how he's going to do.
It's like, remember, what was his name? Matteo Boguc. What's that?
Bogus.
Bogus. Yeah. Now, he every now and then it pops up, doesn't it, on Twitter that he's banged in some 30-yard rocket. You wonder, like, what could have been with him. You never know. He could have solved all our attacking midfield problems.
I mean, he played against Manchester United in the last pre-season under Bielsa, I think it was, before he got sacked later on that season. He was unbelievable. I mean, the talent that he had was just ridiculous, and most of you won't have even heard of him.
To be fair, I was just about to say he's living the high life, isn't he?
He's over in LA
now. Yeah, he's over it. Yeah. Not just anywhere in America. LA, for God's sake.
Yeah.
And actually, he's done all right as well.
I think he's on a bit of a wedge.
He's got like a 1 in 3 strike rate as well, to be fair to him.
Yeah, I think he's on a good bit of money over there as well. And I mean, he did really well. I think he was on loan at Ibiza, which is an odd one as well, for a period of time. Yeah,
again, living the high life.
Yeah,
I was thinking that.
Let's be honest, he picks his clubs bloody well. Yeah. Like, he's not going to Grimsby on loan, is he? Like
LA,
where next? I'm up to Thailand. Okay. Great.
Serious talent though. If he can get it together, I think he struggled with a few injuries, and maybe he's just not fully committed to it. I don't know. You make some points there, but that probably does make a part of it why he's picking these places, because
he's still only 22 as well.
Yeah, he's still only really young. I mean, he was like 17 when he first kind of sprung up at Leeds, but he never played a first team game for
Yeah.
Leeds.
Never really got close, did he? Never got a sniff, did he? Good stuff.
Sorry, sorry, guys, just before we move on, and I'm really interested, I don't want to keep on going over because he might come back, but Killian's comment about bizarre business from the 49ers, I'm no Leeds fan. I've got no affinity to Leeds United, but outside looking in, I'm interested as to what's bizarre about it.
You know what it is, Lou? You know what it is, right? And
this isn't a criticism, all because I'm intrigued, but I don't understand the bizarreness about it because it seems sensible.
I think people like Killian now, is it Cillian? I don't know how you pronounce that. I think a lot of Twitter fan base is seeing it exactly the same as well. They're seeing the number of sales and panicking. That's it.
Yeah,
without applying any context to it whatsoever. So, you know, you're talking about Liam Cooper, who barely played last season, Jamie Shackleton, who didn't play at all. Jack Harrison has gone back out, weren't here last season. Mark Rocker weren't here last season, and this goes on and on and on like this. I think we're on about 13 outgoings, are we, Brownie? Something like that, including Sam Greenwood, Ian Pervader. You know, I could keep on going on like this. The only two out, let's just say it's 13. The only two out of that 13 that were here and played last season were Glenn Kamara and Archie Gray. They're the only two. So you're absolutely spot on. There is no bizarre business. Like, what are you talking about? We've signed Alex Cairns to replace Clarkson. Some fans want to pretend like Clarkson's this world-class goalkeeper. He played 3 times for Leeds. He kept clean sheets in every single game. Because he had nothing to do. He was terrible. You could tell he was terrible. He was so amateurish the way that he played. And he's gone and signed for a bottom-end Polish team. And we've replaced him with Alex Cairns, who's a real solid third-choice goalkeeper. I mean, I really like that signing. You know, he come through the Leeds Academy. He's a Leeds lad. We've been able to sign him back on terms that he's happy to sit on the bench or not even on the bench. Like, what's to hate about that? We've signed Joe Rodon, who we all loved last season. And we've signed Joe Rothwell, who was a dependable championship midfielder. Something we were missing last season. We didn't have somebody like that to call upon within a real important part of the team. So far, nothing to hate on at all.
No, fair enough. Fair enough. I'm sure there'll be lots more going on as well at Ellen Road. And myself and Jason will keep you updated with all that. Okay, shall we cross over now to Scarborough for a bit of Huddersfield Town talk? Our Huddersfield Town correspondent, Steve Downs, has sent in this little video giving his thoughts on everything happening with the Terriers at the moment.
Yeah, sorry I can't once again be on the podcast, but I am in sunny Barbados right now, enjoying a few pints. The sun is out, which is a good start, and so sorry lads, I can't be with you, but I'm sure there's lots of conversations happening tonight on the podcast, so please everybody who is watching to get involved. Just obviously disappointing on the England front, and not sure how much the lads have talked about it, but yeah, not a great night. Thought when we got back into it at 1-1 that we could have gone on and won it, but as is the way with Gareth, we sit back and just didn't take advantage of that moment really, and therefore missed the opportunity to create history for ourselves. But Spain were the better team, and I think I expected Spain to win. I hoped for a 3-1 England victory. I know that was very optimistic, but there we are. Disappointing, but we move on. Chance in another 2 years at the World Cup, so there we go. I think we'll have obviously a different manager. Gareth won't be in charge, just on Town front, obviously Town won 3-2 against Harrogate Town the other night. Wearing my Town top here, very nice from the club shop. 3-2 for Town against Harrogate. There was a few good performances stand out. Thought Nathan Eccleston, a young lad in the academy, did exceptionally well, number 27 at the game. Some really good runs forward, and no fear attitude, and hopefully he'll get to show a little bit of that in Austria in a couple of weeks when the team head out there. I think they'll be going out in the next week or so. So we play 3 good sides out there, 3 good tests before the season starts, but you can already see in the 3 games that we've played against Emley, Guiseley and now Harrogate that there are patterns of play coming together under Duff's 3-5-2 system. Particularly on the defensive front, there seems to be a real solid attitude there. Obviously, Harrogate did score 2 goals. The first one particularly was a really good move, to be fair. But there's things to always improve. There always is in pre-season. But I think generally I've been impressed with the type of football that Duff obviously wants to play. I think it does suit us. And the players particularly. I thought Evans, new player Anthony Evans against against Harrogate, who's come from Bristol, made a really good start to his town career on the pitch, and Herbie Kane was solid as well. And then, Sorensen put in a good performance again, and I think Mikael Miller played as well, and he did all right too. So, some good performances against Harrogate, and it was a good test. Harrogate are a good team. I think they'll do all right this season, from what I've just seen. Obviously the team now goes to Austria, like I said, they play them 3 games, and then the season begins. No real rumours really on the town front in terms of signings. So Thomas looks like he might be going out, but I'm hoping that it's going to be more for more than £1 million that's been rumoured. I think West Brom are interested, and a couple of other sides abroad. So we'll see where that one goes. There will have to be outgoings, I suppose, but let's just hope we can get as much money as we can for them. I think that's around about it, really, from a town point of view. Bolker's injured, got injured against Harrogate, and probably is going to be out now till next season, so that's a disappointment. Probably needed now a new centre-back. And then Nagel did his diary a couple of days ago and stressed the fact that we need some new strikers. He'd like two new strikers in, so hopefully we can get them through the door soon enough. But I know that the club's working hard behind the scenes to try and get a few more incomings, and hopefully they come off. So it's all positive on the town front. On the England front, not so much, but we move on. Anyway, hope you enjoy the rest of the podcast, and please like and subscribe the video as ever. The lads on the channel, really, we all work really hard to make the fantastic content for you guys to watch and discuss and sort of be involved in. So give a like on the channel, subscribe to the channel, like on the video and comment, and I'll see you very, very soon for a regular appearance on the podcast. But for now, I'm off back to have my pint. See you later.
There we go. Stephen Downs, our Huddersfield Town correspondent, giving us all the latest and his thoughts on England there as well. We're going to move on now to Bradford City. Gaz, pre-season very much underway. Friendlies are happening. It was a loss to Guiseley at the weekend. Graham Alexander describing the first half, saying it was a waste of time. We've just wasted 45 minutes of our week. Gaz, what did you make of it?
2 defeats out of 2 in pre-season. Good, but they're still playing 45 minutes each. And I believe that, like I said last week, they're still heavily focused on fitness. So 2 teams for each half. A different team in each half. Apparently Graham Alexander wasn't very happy with the first half performance. Said it was like watching PlayStation football. It was just pass with no intent at all. Said we'd wasted 45 minutes of pre-season. The worry for me is that there's a few fans been saying that the club has been too focused on the good run that we had at the end of last season when looking at what business we need to do this summer. And obviously we've tried to keep the majority of the squad together, and that's because we've been focused on the fact that we won 6 out of 7 or 7 out of 8 at the end of last season. But there were also bad runs last season where we didn't win in 8. We lost 3 on the bounce in March, 3 or 4 on the bounce in March, when the performances were absolutely dreadful. Now, the fact that he's saying that in the second game of pre-season makes you wonder, is that going to be the case again, that we can still revert to that type of poor performance when the new season starts? So, not particularly encouraging results-wise. I believe, again, that the second half was better, but you've still lost the game, and winning's a habit, isn't it, even in pre-season? So we need to get back on the horse there and win some games in pre-season and maybe cheer everyone up a bit, because restlessness is starting to develop already, and it's only, like you said, the second or third week of pre-season. I believe that patience will be thin again, as it always is at City. So, Yeah, criticism starting already. Let's just get a couple of wins on the bounce and see where we are at when we get back from Austria.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it starts on Austria go at the weekend, don't they? They're over there. They're looking to maybe possibly do some business before then, a loan signing, perhaps.
Yeah, we're in Austria. We go on Friday, back next Thursday, so just short of a week. That'll be the first team squad that's going there. There has been some, I think that it's on the ticker on the bottom, that we are playing some Bradford City 11 friendlies, obviously where the first team squad presumably won't be involved. Maybe there might be a player, trialist or two, or the youth team involved in that. The first one was Pickering last week that I believe got abandoned before the end of the game because the torrential rain just started. It was so bad that the referee decided to bring him off the pitch. They've got one tomorrow night. I can't remember who it's against now, but it'll come across on the ticker in a minute. I know Chris typed it in earlier, did very well.
Guys, is this a new thing? Because I don't know if Brownie's seen this, but this is a big thing that's happening at Leeds this summer. We play Glasgow tomorrow. We play Rangers tomorrow. In a friendly at their training ground, and apparently 3 of the friendlies that we've got in Germany are in training facilities as well. I have no idea what's going on.
I believe there's I'm led to believe there's like 3-4 of the friendlies. There's the first team friendlies, and then normally when they announce the first team friendlies, they announce them all together, and then they might change as pre-season develops so that some of them go to being a Bradford City 11. Whereas this time they've announced first team friendlies, and then they've announced Bradford City 11 friendlies completely separate. And they've also, I believe, got games behind closed doors against certain teams or under. I think they might have played. There's a rumour on Twitter last week that we actually played Leeds under 23s in a friendly behind closed doors last week. So there's those games going on as well that haven't even been publicised. So it's as though we've got three pots of friendlies going on at the moment. Yeah. The first team, like I said, go to Austria on Friday for a week. Back next Thursday, they're playing SV Rien in the only game while they're out there. I believe they're a second division team in Austria, and that's the only game that's going to be happening while we're there. No Town. I think Huddersfield have got 2 or 3 games going on while they're in Austria. We've only got the one. The rumours regarding transfers were the back end of last week that we've got a loan that's all agreed to come in, and Graham Alexander's hoping that it will be in before we go to Austria on Friday, but they're waiting on the parent club who are trying to get some business of their own done and don't want to release the player until they've got a signing over the line or a signing or 2 over the line themselves. Lots of rumours as to it possibly being a left wing back, but nothing confirmed by anybody. Lots of different names flying around from various under-23 squads. Like I said, again, no real confirmation from anyone reliable as to who the player will be. I'm a little bit mixed feelings about whether we need another left wing back at the moment, because we've signed Tyree Wright, who, as Graham Alexander's gone after all summer and has basically said he'll be the first choice left wing back next season. And then we have Lewis Richards, who's probably going to be the backup unless he's been told he's free to go, but he's featured in every friendly so far. So, for me, when Alexander's talking about needing a reduced squad number next year, doesn't want an overinflated squad, you don't need more than 2 players for a position, really, in my opinion. So if the player that we're targeting is a left wing back, you would imagine that Richards is going to be going out. Although I'm told that when he played on Saturday at Guiseley, he played at left centre back. So maybe that's something we're going to look at going forward. He might be used as a centre back. I believe when he was on loan at Harrogate, and when he was playing in the youth teams at Wolves, he was mainly a centre-back, and then he's come to City and we've played him at left wing-back. To me, he's pretty bog-standard League Two player. He's not fantastic, but for me, he's perfectly capable of being a backup left wing-back. So for me, unless he's going, we don't really need, or if he's moving position to be a centre-back, we don't need to be looking at left wing-backs come in. City fans are saying that, a lot of them are saying that even though we do have a lot of centre-backs on the books, they'd possibly rather us be targeting another centre-back, someone that's perhaps a ball-playing centre-back or someone that's got a bit of pace about them, because the centre-backs that we have don't look particularly pacey at the moment. We had two trialist centre-backs played at Guiseley on Saturday. One was ex-Grimsby, Niall, I can't remember his surname.
Is it
Niall
Meyer?
Meyer, that's the one, Chris. Thank you very much. Yeah, got released by Grimsby in the summer. He trialled and played the first half. And
He
then
was
a lad who was
Halifax,
released.
wasn't it?
Yeah, he was at Halifax before
Yeah.
Grimsby.
Well, I believe that he was at Halifax before Grimsby. Then he played for us, got released by Grimsby this summer, trialled for us for 45 minutes on Saturday. And then the rumours are today that he might be going back to Halifax on a permanent deal. So goodness knows whether we've decided that we don't want him or whether he's got an offer somewhere. That's not been confirmed. Like I say, it's just Twitter rumours that he's going to be signing for Halifax. And then another lad that we had played the second half on Saturday was released by Fylde in the summer. So a little bit worrying if they're the types of players that we're targeting, but it might show that fans are getting what they want and we're targeting a centre-back rather than a left wing-back. So it's all a bit up in the air. There's nothing concrete around here at the moment as to what that business is going to be, just that we are looking to get a loanee in before we go to Austria, if we can, obviously dependent on the parent club.
Was there a name on that, Gaz, on the lad from Fylde?
Yeah, is it Sam Graham?
Yeah, he was at Rochdale the season before.
I was going to ask you about it. I've forgotten, actually, Chris. When I saw the name, someone said he was at Rochdale, and I was going to ask you about him, but it completely slipped my mind.
Yeah, he's all right. He's to be fair, he's reasonably pacey. So if that's what you're in the market for, somebody that can kind of mop up for everybody else, then actually he's probably not too bad of an option. I can't imagine he would cost a great deal. It's just one of those that I guess from a Bradford City fan's perspective, seeing somebody that's then released by Rochdale and then released by AFC Fylde in the National League isn't necessarily one to whet the appetite, is it, for Bantams fans?
No, I mean, like I said, the positives are that perhaps we're targeting a centre-back and fans believe that we need a pacey ball-playing centre-back. The negatives are, like you say, the calibre of the player that we're looking at.
Don't get me wrong. He's not a world beater, but he isn't. He was fairly steady, shall we say. He wasn't, and that was in a poor Rochdale side as well. That was in a Dale side that got relegated, and he was steady enough. But yeah, as I say, it's just one of those that perhaps not the most exciting of prospects for Bantams fans.
No, there's been a little bit of like I mentioned before, discontent growing a little bit regarding City. There always is.
I'll bring that up from Ian.
Yeah. A lot of it, like Ian says, is coming from this. The club were at pains to stress, particularly at the fans forum that I went to 2 or 3 weeks ago, that Stefan Rupp is supplementing the playing budget this year, and there's not really been. Fans are saying there's not really been any signs of that in the signings that we've made so far. They're looking at players that have gone to other clubs and saying, why weren't we in for them? Or if we weren't in for them, why have they gone there and not come to us? So, yeah, it's a little bit worrying. And like I say, maybe the performances, the 2 defeats in pre-season haven't helped that. You just need a couple of wins and everybody feels better, or a marquee signing here or there and everybody feels a bit better. It is mixed messages. I'd like to know, where the money's been spent, if he hasn't supplemented the playing budget. But we'll never know that, will we? So I don't know. It's just like Ian says, it's a bit mixed messages. The actions aren't sort of marrying up with the words at the moment.
The thing is, guys, right, at this stage of the season, as fans, we all want to play Football Manager with it, don't we? And whenever a player goes somewhere else and we don't sign them and we potentially need that position, we're all very quick to be like, why haven't we signed that guy? But if you do that with everybody, imagine the size of the squad. Like, what if you actually had targets? You know what I mean? Like, what if the scouting team have actually drawn up a list of options that they see as the best options for that position? So I just think we have to be patient with squad building at this stage of the season. It doesn't just happen like that.
What about cutting players, though, guys? I mean, Verdane Oliver, as Ian mentioned there, I mean, he's someone who we probably expected to be gone, but I mean, Alexander seemed to hint that he's kind of involved as much as anyone else at the moment. Are you a bit surprised by that?
Yeah, that kind of marries in with what Jay said there about the squad size, because Alexander has said since he's been in the club that the squad was too big last year. He wants a smaller squad this year. So obviously that makes you think that, I think I counted up that the squad size, I think I mentioned it on last week's pod, we're at 26 players at the moment.
It's massive.
Which is big for League Two. And he also said at the fans forum that he expected two of the remaining signings that he expected at that time would be loans. It's just that it's the mixed messages about the budget being supplemented and then the targets being perhaps not the caliber that we want or loans. But if you're waiting for players to move on before you get players in, are you waiting? He's also mentioned obviously, like you said, Verdane Oliver. The players that were mentioned as being available to go out were Verdane Oliver, Kevin McDonald, and Adam Wilson. They've been mentioned in the paper as being the 3 players that are available to go. If you're waiting for them to move on, or you're waiting for, like Graham Alexander said the other day, that they're waiting on the parent club of this loanee. Like there's lots of cogs ticking, like you were saying about Leeds at the moment. You just wait for things to fall into place a little bit. Verdane Oliver, speaking of him individually, is a funny one because he has been mentioned all summer as being available for transfer. But there was an article in the paper today that he might not be, perhaps not moving on. He might be staying around. He's one of the players that he's your alternate big man for Andy Cook, isn't he? So if he was to go, he would need to be replaced because we've seen that at City we always struggle to play without a bit of a target man up front, and Andy Cook's going to be 34 this season, so his form and his injuries might be sort of a bit up and down. And if Verdane Oliver was to go, I would like to see a big man brought in. But if you can't move him on, is there anyone better that you could have as a backup target man in League Two? Perhaps not. Perhaps he's the sort of player that you want as a backup in League Two. It'd be interesting to see whether he does go. Like I say, if he does go, he will need to be replaced, which is obviously, I also think, the case for Kevin McDonald as well, because he'll be the backup to Richie Smallwood, and if he was to go, you need some cover for Richie Smallwood. So it's probably a case of cogs ticking, waiting for things to fall into place a little bit at City at the moment.
Yeah, indeed. Good stuff. Thank you, Gaz. If you're watching along, please do like the video, subscribe to the channel as well. And if you're watching on Twitter, please do retweet it and like the video as well and get your comments in also. Okay, we're going to have a little look at non-league now with Lewis Sale. Lewis, busy weekend for you, wasn't it, mate? You've got to a couple of games on Saturday, but what's catching your eye out there in the world of non-league?
Yeah, plenty happening. Pretty much echoing a lot what Gaz has said there. About a lot of cogs ticking. I'll be careful how I say that. But making sure that obviously the transfers are coming in and out and doing the right thing. And, things, there's an expectation where, teams feel they've got a bigger budget and put one and one together and they get 500 and expect instant gratification of players coming in. But from a non-league perspective, there's been a couple of incomings, but it's more been the friendlies and fixture releases. So if we're looking at kind of at the National League, obviously the fixtures have come out in the National League. Halifax, I believe, play quite a few games at home at the beginning of the season. I think it's 4 out of the first 5. So that will be interesting to see how Dave's pitch at Bashir gets on after the first 4 games. It's pretty sure comment in September about it.
It's almost like they've thought that through. Like I hate to say it, but the National League might have actually thought something through for a change by looking at the state of Halifax's pitch last season. And I thought, oh, you know what? Let's go whilst the weather's good and get them the home games in early. I mean, can they not just play 10 of the home games first, and either however many at the end of the season, and then whatever happens with the rugby doesn't matter then?
No, possibly not. I mean, like I say, it's going to be. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I actually think looking at the fixtures, even though they are at home, but actually very tough running to begin with for Halifax, and considering again. Looking back on some of the teams we're talking about in terms of the fixtures and squads building, they've got Barnet, who are arguably probably the favourites to go up on the first game of the season. Aldershot recruited pretty well. Gateshead were up there or thereabouts. Then they go away at Dagenham and Redbridge. Home to Solihull, we're in the trophy final, and then end of month for Ebbsfleet. It's not an easy running at all for the Sherman. So I think obviously they just want to see a bit for example, like Gaz was saying, with some City fans, is some movement coming in at Bashir. So, but they picked up the first pre-season win, so all is well at Bashir. But like I say, moving on to the National League North, fixtures got released as well for Farsley. So Farsley, ironically, kick off the season like they did last year away at Rushall Olympic. Bizarre how that's worked out. But last year they won 2-0 away from home, so they'll be hoping to do the same at Dales Lane. But they've again, looking at the fixtures, got quite a tough Christmas period and end of season. So in December alone, I've got Buxton, who've just gone full time away. Brackley, who are notoriously playoff finalists, semi-finals that are, the nearly men. Curzon Ashton away, and then Radcliffe at home on New Year's Day. That is such a tough running over Christmas. And the actual last game, depending on how well Farsley go, is away at Brackley. You don't want to go to Brackley needing to get something on that final game of the season. But they've kicked off a pre-season campaign. They drew away at Bridlington on the weekend, and then are away to Silsden tomorrow night on Tuesday. The Northern Premier League, subject, according to their X-feed, to any issues and delays, the fixtures are due out this Thursday, 18th. So obviously quite a few teams in our region that will be looking out on Thursday. So fingers crossed there are no issues and delays, because we're not that far away from the proposed start of the season.
I'm sure, Lou. I'm sure somebody over the weekend that we were speaking to was like, Monday, definitely going to be Monday that the NPL fixtures are out. Definitely Monday, definitely, 100%. Yeah. And then they've been like, oh yeah, now it's Thursday.
Right, it's definitely maybe, to use an Oasis term, Thursday. Yeah, so
might be Thursday.
But obviously in terms of pre-season and kind of what's going around at the weekend, went to a couple. Me and Chris did a bit of a double header on Saturday. But Guiseley, obviously Gaz picked up on their win at Nethermore. They travelled to Havre on Wednesday. Avenue picked up a draw against Eccleshill at home, and then travelled to Wakefield tomorrow night. But Avenue have also recruited 2 players into the squad. Luke Hogg, who was initially trialling at Emley beginning of the season, but played all last season for Stocksbridge. And for those who may be familiar, was an ex-Guiseley youngster as well. So he's come and joined, is almost like a central defensive midfielder. And for those Bantams fans may remember a name of an ex-youngster was Daniel Francis, who was a wing-back. So Daniel Francis had a bit of time in Germany. I won't pretend to pronounce the names because I don't want to offend him. But he's also Sierra Leone international with 2 appearances, so every cap counts. But he's joined Avenue almost as a wing-back, right-back, left-back. So that's a good signing. Based on the rumours that were coming out during the season when him coming back, it wasn't expected he'd probably be dropping down to the Northern Premier League East. So that could be quite a shrewd move. In terms of other teams that may be keeping an eye out on Thursday in terms of the fixtures, Liversidge, they beat Birtley Town 5-1. Albion travelled to, and I've never, with the greatest respect, never heard this team, Crowell Colts in Lincolnshire. Never heard of them. I don't know.
If you've not heard of them, mate, I don't have a chance. By the way.
0-0.
I think we googled it and it was like a Lincolnshire, like the equivalent of like the West Yorkshire Amateur League, isn't it? I think, but in Lincolnshire. And I mean, I'm from Lincoln and I have no recollection. All right, Brown.
Get that in there, mate.
The newbies into the league, Garforth Town, they beat Parkgate 3-0, and they travel to Beverley tomorrow night. Brighouse, as we spoke to Grant Black last week, so those who've not caught up on his interview can catch up on our YouTube channel. They travelled to Worksop and lost 5-0, which was, to be fair, not unexpected because that's a very tough friendly to start off with, really. But they're away at Frickley tomorrow night. Ponty and Wakefield drew 1-1, with Ponty travelling to Knaresborough tomorrow night as the fixtures gone along the bottom. Emley decided to take 2 teams on Friday night, one to Taddy, one to Frickley. They beat Taddy 7-3, Frickley 2-2. They travel to Rossington tomorrow. Silsden won 5-0. Campion lost to Field 3-2. Fackley, again, bizarre connection, went to Northwich Victoria, the old classic non-league name. They drew 1-1 and actually home to Liversidge tomorrow night in a bit of a West Yorkshire kind of derby-ish in a friendly. And Steventon lost to Ilkley 1-0. So, yeah, there's a lot of friendlies, a lot of kind of things bubbling underneath in terms of incomings, outgoings, but we're not that far away now from the start of the season, bizarrely, non-league. So there's going to be a lot of teams wanting to almost cement their teams, I'd say, in the next couple of weeks. There's going to be probably some teams that are looking to maybe not panic buy, but be quite direct in their approaches for certain players, I'm guessing, at this time of the season. And I'd expect, like I say, a lot of the teams to have the business done probably with a game or 2 to go in pre-season. So, yeah, it's interesting. It's very, very busy. And again, like we always say, if you're able to get to one of these friendlies, because I do say this about non-league friendlies, they are very different from EFL friendlies. It's not a pre-season kind of feel about it. It is sometimes blood thunder in it.
Yeah, there's a much greater intensity to a non-league pre-season than there is to, Harrogate versus Huddersfield or whatever in with 2 EFL sides. There really is.
They just want to play football, don't they?
Yeah.
It's almost
themselves.
That is almost like their season, isn't it, really? Like, they just they're there because they want to play football. So.
The thing is, you'd think the ticket's steady, but for the NCL teams, as Lou quite rightly says, the season is literally, we are 11 days away. The season starts on the 26th of July for the NCL, and actually for 3 of our West Yorkshire sides, on the Friday night, Galka play Penistone, Silston host Campion, and Horbury Town host Nostell Miners Welfare. So actually, you've got 5 of our West Yorkshire sides is actually on the opening night of the NCL before the rest of play on Saturday the 27th. So, yeah, that's bloody soon, isn't it? Like, I'll say we're literally a week on Friday, and bam, the season starts for non-league clubs.
Massively, and I think it's been such a busy time, I think, for the non-league clubs to, especially at this level, to get trialists and pre-season sorted. We know, speaking to one club locally, they've had about 30 come in for the first session because, 1, that they want to join the club, and 2, to probably just get into the swing of things. And like I say, 3, to win a contract as soon as possible, whether it is with that club or not. And I know that club have trimmed some of them trialists down probably within the first 2 or 3 training sessions because their season starts very, very soon. And it's the same again with what we're seeing, I think, as well, more at non-league. And me and Chris have picked up on this probably a bit more in the past couple of seasons, where clubs are very, very reluctant to display their teams, whether that's on social media or even on team sheets. So we'll do team sheets now at local non-league games because there's a bit of tension and a bit of keeping the cards close to the chest so they don't reveal who's playing for them. And listen, I think there's a couple of teams who've probably been burnt by it a bit in the past. And now, for example, we were at Barlick Fleetwood Town Academy on Saturday, 12 o'clock kickoff. You wouldn't expect much, but with no team sheets, even at that game. So there's a lot of teams looking after their own interests, which is right, because again, we're so close to the season that they probably just can't afford to let a good trialist potentially go if somebody's not at the game. And there's a few scouts already kicking around. Definitely, we've been across the 2 games this weekend. Definitely a load that are just hovering around to just see if there's anybody there that they feel can do a job for their team. So yeah, interesting, busy. And I will say that it will only get busy, I'd say, in the next couple of weeks. Yeah, I think it's going to really ramp up the noise.
Indeed. Cracking stuff. By the way, I feel like I've not adopted a non-league team yet.
Well, I remember
it was meant to be Ossett.
Yeah, I was going to say,
I didn't get to a game, to be fair.
It was meant to be Ossett last season, wasn't it? I remember us going through this, and I can't remember who Jay ended up with either. I think Gaz went for Silsden. I think Jay got Campion. And you got Ossett, Brownie. I mean, just because you didn't get there last season, you don't have to change club.
I'll take you to Ossett next season, Brownie. We'll go on again.
If there's any kind of non-league teams watching and they want to kind of pitch to me, slide into my DMs.
How big time do you think you are? That they have to slide into your DMs.
just think they could have this at one of their home games. Come on.
Oh, here we go.
On the side. I was pissed. Come on. Ossett, I'll try again. I will try again. Come on, you mighty Ossets.
To be fair, expecting Lou, fairly interesting things, to be fair, from Ossett next season, because obviously they're a club actually that's had a hell of a transformation in terms of their squad, Lou.
Massive change.
Management.
Yeah, management on the field, and we'll get Brownie's roundup in a few weeks' time when he's been and knows all about it. But yeah, massive change. I think they've pretty much got a brand new squad. I think from last time I checked, I think they've pretty much around 13, 14 players. Paul Bell come in, who used to be at Runcorn Linnets as well, who did a decent job there. So they are going to be. I think they'll probably be better than what they were last season. They've picked up quite a few players from Parkgate who won the North Counties Division 1 as well. Duggan there, Williamson there. So they've got some talent in the ranks now. And look, Ossett's been one of, I won't say a sleeping giant, but since they've merged together with Albion and Town, it's one of those that people have always kept an eye on and thinking they might do a little bit better. But I'm not saying they're going to go up, but I think they'll be a little bit stronger than last season. Surprise if you're on the day. So there you go, Brownie. Get yourself down, mate.
Good stuff. Sounds promising. Okay, so we'll move on to the final part of our show now that we've got to do, really. However despairing it might be. Obviously, on the West Yorkshire Football Show, we've been following the Euros. We've been following England all along, and it culminated last night in England losing in the final again of the Euros. I'll start with you, Chris, because you're wearing your England shirt, mate. You're still there. You're still proud. Let's be honest, you're probably the most positive about Southgate and England in general. Fair play to you. And we didn't have much discussion on the group chat for various reasons last night, but let's have your opinion now. So, what did you make of it overall? I mean, it's just gutting, isn't it? But I mean, how do you feel about it in the cold light of day now, mate?
It's one of those. It still hurts. To put it simply, it's let's be honest. It wasn't unexpected by any stretch of the imagination. Even as the one that's kind of been the look, anything can happen kind of thing. You know, it could have done, but just it's disappointing. And it will be interesting to see. I'm already kind of almost over the game, not over the feeling of disappointment, but over the game itself. And now onto the what's going to come next part. You know, I said over the course of some of the shows that we did, to be fair, during the course of the Euros, that everything was kind of going to be, you know, whatever happens with this year. It's going to be a new manager going to the World Cup. Now I'm actually slightly doubting that a little bit. I'm not as sure that Southgate will go as I was before. Time will tell. But there's just a part of me that's like, kind of, I'll be honest, and this is going to really upset you lot, but at the moment, there isn't, like, we're not going to go out and get a Pep or a Klopp. I genuinely think that the FA are going to want to have an English manager next. And I don't think there's a high enough quality candidate out there right now that you look at and think he's worth getting rid of, or if if he walks away, I'm not seeing a candidate that's actually going to make that. I'm there thinking, yeah, that's a brilliant appointment. We're gonna go that next step. We're gonna win whatever we're in next time. There really isn't. Like Eddie Howe and Graham Potter and Lee Carsley are the three favourites, and I'm looking at them thinking, well, what's the point in changing? Like if Southgate really wants to stay, if he is, offered by the FA to stay, I'm not really sure that Howe, Potter, or Carsley is actually going to be much better. Like I know Howe's had difficulties with injuries this season at Newcastle, but meh. Potter.
I don't like the idea of Howe though, because I think Newcastle, when they're at the best and they've got fit team, I think they play really well.
It is different though, isn't it? This is the thing with international football, because obviously he's got the relationships and the arm round from Eddie Howe as he did to be fair at Bournemouth as well. But it's just when you're coaching them for a fortnight every 2 months or whatever it is for international breaks and that, I just don't know how much things would change, really. How much he'll be able to really put things forward naturally. I'm just struggling because I would love us to be, honestly, and this is unusual for me because I've always been quite a strong advocate of, it'd be great to have an English manager. But actually, right now, I would rather us go all out and find a foreign manager. You've only got to look at someone like Ralph Rangnick and what he's done with Austria. If you could prize him away from Austria and bring him to England, I'd be really happy. If you could go and I don't know what Roberto Mancini's up to nowadays. I don't know whether he's back in club management or whether he's just out of work. But you know what I mean? If we could go and get a top level foreign manager, I'd be like, yeah, all right, fair enough, Gareth. But I'm not looking at the English candidates and thinking, woo, like nothing's making me think it would actually really change much. Potter, and don't worry, I really like Potter at Brighton, and actually, I don't think what happened at Chelsea has particularly damaged his reputation too much, because that was he had to take the job. It was extremely lucrative, and it could have panned out very differently. But ultimately, it was a basket case, so I don't think that's damaged him too much. But he's obviously been out of work for a while, but I do kind of feel like he's rejecting jobs for a reason. I do think that actually he's the one that is most likely to end up replacing Southgate if they don't have an English manager. But again, as much as I did like Graham Potter and what he's done at Brighton, I'm not looking at him thinking, well, he's going to be amazing for England. Yeah. I'm just a bit flat with it all. Like, unless we were to be able to go out and find and get a top class foreign manager, you'll never thought you'd hear me say this, price Pep away from Manchester City with enough money, throw enough money at Klopp and be like, come on, you have a crack. go for a Mancini or a Ralph Rangnick, then I just don't really see right now a huge amount of point in changing. And then I'm hoping that, I mean, I think that says a lot about where English managers are actually at Premier League level as well, and the lack of them.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it is an issue, isn't it? We've kind of got the players coming through now, but we don't seem to have the managers coming through, do we?
Has it not been like that for about 30 years?
Yeah. Howard Wilkinson, last manager to win the top league, wasn't it? So,
we've never had an English manager win the Premier League. Like,
no.
I can't. When you think back to Keegan and Venables, maybe as the pinnacle of English management during the 90s. Apart from that, where are you?
Yeah, isn't it? Which, I mean, Jay, just kind of, I don't know about you, but I feel fatigued with England now after this tournament, because it's been at times a difficult watch, let's be honest, for the majority of the tournament. And to kind of battle through and actually make it to final and lose anyway, it's kind of given me a renewed kind of vigour for Leeds United again. I think I've kind of switched today. I'm like back in kind of Leeds United mode now.
That'll change when you lose on the opening day.
Where do you stand with it at the moment then, Jay? I mean, kind of where's your head at with the England stuff? Are you just kind of happy to forget about it? Let's get back to the proper stuff. Or do you think, look, you know, it was another amazing tournament. Do we need to let Gareth go again in America?
I think
I can't watch this football anymore. I can't watch this kind of passive football anymore. That's the only thing.
I think ultimately we've all been a bit fatigued from it because the tournament was such a damp squid from an England perspective anyway. There weren't a single good performance really, and you know the conversation that we're having now really should be exactly the same conversation that we would have had should Jude Bellingham not score that overhead kick against Slovakia, because in my opinion nothing changed. That wasn't Southgate that got us through that moment. It was a moment of brilliance, as was the equaliser last night, as was the Ollie Watkins goal in the Holland game. And this kind of trend has just carried on throughout the whole tournament. And I've got this okay, like, because I know Chris has definitely got some points when it comes to Southgate's whole angle within England. He, for me, has given me my best times as an England fan, without a doubt. Same. He's taken us to 2 finals and we've only ever been to 3, and one of them were 50 years ago. So I get it, and I absolutely get what he's brought back, and you know the style of play has serviced us for so long, where he's taken us deep into competitions. But the facts are, the cold hard facts, is every time he's been challenged against a team either on par or slightly better, we failed. And we fail in exactly the same way, pretty much every single time. Last night's game and performance felt exactly like what we've seen when we've been challenged before. We were kind of going through the motions of losing that game. And to get into like the finer details of it, we chase the game, we look better, we score. The Kyle Walker moment, and you'll have all seen it on social media today, where he has a throw-in, horizontal with the box. He could just throw a long ball in. I'd rather him do that. He throws it all the way back to Stones, which then goes all the way back to Pickford with it like that. It's unbelievable. And that isn't
when Pickford smashes it to their keeper
and gives it back to keeper. These players, with the exception of 1 or 2 here or there, are all playing for, you know, top teams, winning trophies regularly, playing attacking football. And then they're stifled into doing this. It's instructional. It's not the players, in my opinion. I know Jamie Carragher came out today and said before it was Capello and we blamed him, and then it was Sven and we blamed 4-4-2 and all that. This is different. And I get that angle of it, but these players, it's just a different time altogether for me. I think now, you know, Chris has kind of aired it there in that we go out and just get the best man for the job. I don't care whether he's English or not. You know, that has kind of gone a long time ago.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, his football would be unbelievable. International football is different to club football. But
genuine question for you two as Leeds fans, because you know everything about Marcelo Bielsa. How long has his contract got to run with Uruguay?
Oh, right. I think it's probably
I guess he's got quite a long time.
Yeah, I believe he's there for a contracted for another 2 tournaments. So, like the World Cup and then the Copa America again. I think he's there
time
for a
to
while.
play the waiting game.
Yeah, I mean, he would be perfect. I'm not just saying that from a biased point of view, because he's perfect for international management. You know, he's got that style that I think can be maintained for a shorter period of time. I think he's at club level, he's always going to have legs. That's the only downside I can bring to Marcelo's door, really. He would be perfect. He'd play a style of football that everybody would love to watch, and he'd get the best out of what we've got. That's the most important thing. So yeah, just go get the best guy for the job. Go get the best. But I said this in the group the other day. International management isn't the carrot that it once was, and you're seeing that throughout the whole of international management, not just England. You know, these top managers, they don't wait for the Spain job or the Germany job or the France job like they used to. They wait for the Real Madrid, the Barcelona, the Manchester City. I remember growing up, the international stage was seen as the herald. The England job was the big job. It's not anymore. So I get why you're then fishing in a different market. But just go and pay them whatever they need to pay them. Go and just, I don't know, go and give Jose 2026 and let him win it, because
honestly, if he hadn't have just taken the Fenerbahce job, I reckon he'd probably have fancied it. But at the same time, he must have known like that there's a reasonable chance Southgate's time is done, and yet he's still obviously going to take that Fenerbahce job. Don't know how much they're paying him, probably quite a lot more than the England job would, but yeah, I think we've missed an opportunity with there. But again, the football might not necessarily be much better.
No.
But anyway, that's a whole new.
But it's effective.
But, yeah,
get it over the line.
Yeah, he has. He's got that know-how. He's got that experience, and that's the thing in it.
I made this point between the Daniel Farke and Daniel Farke and Gareth Southgate comparisons, because Leeds fans have been doing this for a while, and there is some similarities. But I'm going to say this loosely because we ended up losing in the playoff final, but Farke's style over the season got us 90 points and took us within a fraction of promotion. Southgate's job now.
Southgate's football took us to a final, but missed out on winning it. Very similar.
I mean, there is some similarities, but the fact that
I've never thought of Daniel Farke as the German Southgate until now. There we go.
The point I was coming to is Mourinho's style of football isn't great, but it wins things, and you can take not winning. You can take bad style of football if you win things. You can't have the both.
Gaz, I just want to come to you because I just want to get your take on a few of the individual performances from players, and I think we're probably on the same page about a lot of that. I mean, if you look at someone like Harry Kane, I mean, what on earth happened to this guy in this tournament? I mean, you're talking about a guy that scored 30-odd goals in the Bundesliga. For me, I slated him last night, but I do feel we've not really built a kind of system for him. I don't feel like we were set up in a way to get the best out of Harry Kane. But, and we're hearing possible back injuries and all this kind of thing. But it does feel like we get stuck on these players, and it's almost like the player is more important than the team. You know, it's certain players are kind of in the club and can't be touched, can't be swapped or anything like that. And other players don't get a look in. I mean, you look at someone like Trent Alexander-Arnold, who, you know, I mean, I agree with what Gary Neville said about him. I think we're going to look back, you know, in 10, 15 years and go, why the hell weren't we playing Trent more, for England? And yet he's kind of used as a little bit of a scapegoat in my view. I mean, Kyle Walker I thought was abysmal. I think he's had a really bad tournament, Kyle Walker. Yet, you know, another player who, you know, can't be touched, can't be dropped, and, you know, avoids a lot of criticism. You know, I don't know. What do you make of it, Gaz?
I'd just like to jump in and say that I agree 100% with what Chris said before. I've been thinking about it today. If we're going to go for a Potter or a Howe, I'd pretty much rather us just keep Southgate. Really would. Don't see it being any better. We're not going to get a Klopp. Klopp will not come and manage England. Full stop. It's just not going to happen. Mourinho, when did he say he gets things over the line? When did he last win anything? It's a long time ago.
Roma,
Europa
was it? Or
Europa League with Roma.
League or something?
But he's gone to Fenerbahce anyway, so he's off the table.
Players, you're right. Me and you agreed on a lot, didn't we, Brownie, in the group chat this tournament? We were agreeing left, right, and centre, really. But if Trent Alexander-Arnold had put in the performance that Kyle Walker put in last night, he'd have been absolutely ripped to shreds. Yeah, Gary Neville would have not left him alone. He doesn't know where the man is for the first goal. Both goals have come down his side. He's asleep. Blah, 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 blah. You wouldn't have heard the end of it. And there's certain players, they're just untouchable, and they just they will not criticise him. Declan Rice is another.
Oh, Rice.
Kyle Walker,
Stinker.
Declan Rice. It was quite refreshing in a way at the start of the tournament that Gary Lineker criticised Harry Kane. Because when does anybody criticise Harry Kane? And they actually went down the route of criticising him. And then they kind of backtracked. It was like, oh, no, we shouldn't have done that. We're really sorry, Harry. We're not allowed to do that. But, the thing with Harry Kane is we've talked about it. I've talked about it with Chris on the pod before. I don't know why it's a problem now when it's not been before. He's always dropped deep. Why it's an issue now when it never has been before, I don't know. You're going to have to ask a footballing mastermind as to why it is now. Maybe the back injury is a thing. He talks about he's not played for a long time. He's carrying this back injury. Maybe it's the fact that we were a little bit more low block now than we have been in the past, and that doesn't suit him. You need a runner. You need an Ollie Watkins when you're playing a low block.
Think of when we've been as best in the Southgate. Primarily for the last 3 tournaments, it's been Sterling and Rashford. And like Foden isn't going to bomb on because he always wants to cut inside. Saka, to his credit, I thought has had a really good tournament and actually has got in down that right hand side quite a lot. But this is the problem. I think that's limited us to just sticking it down the right hand channel to Saka when he does drop deep. Whereas before, you always had an option on both sides because Rashford would go down the left, Sterling would go down the right, and Sterling has been, oh Christ, look at 2021. Sterling was brilliant in the last Euros for us.
100%.
And it worked with Kane dropping deeper and allowing them to get in behind, but we just haven't been able to do it. And it's been so glaringly obvious, as we've said time and time again, about the lack of balance because everything's had to go down the right because Saka's capable of getting in behind, Trippier on the left-hand side isn't, and Foden cutting inside over time doesn't work. So I think that's the bog standard looking at it from a fan's perspective, a basic fan's always like mine. But yeah, just
I think you're probably right. I think it is the fact that Saka was the only outlet. I mean, you heard Danny Rose say early in the tournament, if you're playing against England, you defend their right, you leave their left because everyone on the left wants to cut inside, whether that be Trippier or Foden or Bellingham, as he ended up out on the left quite a lot, didn't he, last night? But they all want to come inside. So maybe that is a thing, that if we'd have had a left footer on the left, but we had that option. We could have put, why didn't we do it? Gareth picked the squad at the start of the tournament. So, it makes you think, well, it's his own fault, but that is possibly the only explanation as to why we weren't getting out of Harry Kane what we've got out of him before. Is there anything in the back injury? We'll never know. He hadn't played for a long time. They've been the reasons that Gareth Southgate's given, haven't they, today, that, as to why we didn't see the best of him. Also, he's Bayern Munich. Like, is the German league all that? As the standard drop, as his performances tailed off because he spent a year in Germany? We'll never know that either.
Doubt it. I wouldn't necessarily put that in. I reckon in due course something is going to come out in the next week or two about him having, playing injured. I'm convinced that something is officially going to come out.
If that does come out, though, how annoying is that, though, really? Because if you ask Spurs fans about the Champions League final and Kane came back into that team when he wasn't properly fit, and Lucas Moura, I think, actually missed out, and he was the one that was carrying that team to the final. It's like Harry Kane. It's this Harry Kane thing of, we can't drop Harry Kane, but actually, it could have been to the detriment, of the team overall.
Just before you move on with that, Brandon, I saw a great piece earlier on Alan Shearer retiring from international duty at 29. And I'm not, saying Harry should do that, but what definitely is the case that come the end of a hard season, when you are 30, you're getting into your early 30s, is you don't recover as well. You've not got as much left come that time of the season. There could be a case to say that he can only manage to do it throughout the season for his club at this stage. And given the way that we're playing and it doesn't suit him. It doesn't suit him dropping back and then going forward. And Chris made a great point of Rashford and Sterling. The pace of them two inverting in off of that drop deep looks totally different to Foden cutting inside. And Saka's not rapid. Like, over 5 yards he is, but he's not one to, like Rashford, where he bursts away.
Yeah, Sterling, in his heyday.
Yeah. Or Anthony Gordon even. If you're playing Gordon on the left, it'd have looked a little bit different as well. So I
was waiting for Lou to bring up Gordon.
There might just be a case that he's just not the right cog in this system, and he has to do the right thing and just say, you know what? My best time is behind me now for England.
Yeah.
It crossed my mind today, would he retire? It did. I mean, I probably dismissed it and said, no, he probably won't. But it's quite interesting that you brought that up, Jay, because it did cross my mind today. So we'll wait and see, won't we? But the fact that he came off injured, no, he didn't come off injured, but the fact that he was subbed a few times during the tournament makes you think, is he carrying injury? Or is it a tactical thing and we're realising that he don't fit the system? But there's definitely something in it, I think.
No. Let's give Lewis the final say on England then. Lou, you've heard the arguments. I mean, first of all, what was your take on last night's game and what do you think should happen next for England and Southgate?
My opinion is that I've not changed my opinion actually from the beginning of the tournament, in the respect that we have a manager who I don't think was strong enough to make the big and bold decisions to affect the big moments in a game. I think he got some stuff, kind of right in the tournament, but I think the big moments, especially last night, I look back at the 2021 final against Italy and I just saw a very similar situation. A couple of things I picked up on. Shaw came in and he did reasonably well against Jamal, but Trippier's played all tournament. He's trusted Trippier all tournament. Trippier's one of his leading group, but drops him completely for a final. Listen, I know people might still think it was a right decision, but I actually think when you think of it rationally, to drop one of your leaders who's got experience in big game situations, who you trust, to drop him outright, I thought was bizarre. I really did. And I actually think that, well, I'm sure I heard this on commentary, and I'm not sure whether it was true or not, but apparently Trippier and Gallagher were about to come on just before the second goal.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, they were,
And that, for me, just sums up where we are and the person at the time who's kind of in charge of the team at the moment, where Spain were bold in what they have done through the tournament. Other teams have been quite bold in their decisions. And for us, it seemed on paper that we were relatively happy to sit back and take extra time and go to penalties with that. Don't get me wrong, the switch to put Palmer in paid off because Palmer scored the goal, so that worked.
What a goal, by the way. What a finish that
was. It was an unreal finish. But what I want to see is as soon as that happened again, the same old story happened where we dropped back. We had 5-10 minutes where even the players were trying to get the crowd on the side. They knew that they were on top in that moment. And that, for me, was exactly that time, going back to that Italy final, when we were on top and we were ready to not kill the game, but we could have really taken a foothold in that game, especially when you won one out of nowhere. They haven't got Rodri to defend that anchor point in midfield for him. And we just didn't kick on at all. And instead, we're potentially bringing Trippier and Gallagher on, which I thought is quite scary. Listen, I agree with some of the stuff that's been said. I think Rice has had his shackles on massively this tournament. It's not what he's really there to do. We've seen it second half of this season at Arsenal, where he's a box-to-box midfielder. That's not his job for England. And one thing that I will say is that we're crying out for a proper ball player tackling type of Kante kind of style that we've missed for a long, long time. Probably arguably since Michael Carrick. And I think Michael Carrick wasn't even used well enough by England either.
No, he wasn't.
When we look at that, Rice and Mainu have been put together out of chance because he tried to experiment with Trent. That didn't work, in his opinion. He tried to work with Gallagher. That didn't work, in his opinion. So then he's left going to Mainu. And I actually think, going back to what Gaz has said throughout the tournament, the person who probably in that squad at that time that could have done that job, Adam Wharton, who's a forward-thinking player who can pick up the stuff, but he actually is ready to start possession. But he didn't trust him. He's taken him all that time. He's taken him all that way in a squad, and he's not really used him. And I use the same argument about Anthony Gordon. For me, how many times were I saying throughout that game, it's crying out for a Gordon, echoing a lot of what you guys have said of the wingers going beyond the front man. Kane's getting older, and his legs aren't what they used to be. So even more so, you play wingers and players that will run beyond. Gordon would have terrified, in my opinion, the likes of Carvajal and Lamondé at the back. I think it would have absolutely terrified him, and we were crying out for pace. We just had nothing up top because we were a bit slack in possession. We were just giving possession away far too easily. Pickford, for me, yes, he made some great saves, but I think his distribution was truly awful. If I'm
He made one good save. He made one good.
Just awful. Yeah. And Kane. Yeah, I agree. I mean, look at Kane not being at Spurs this year. It's not Spurs haven't had a bad season without him. So listen, I think he's been a great striker, scores plenty of goals, but in this system and the way I actually think Gareth tries to, I don't think Gareth Southgate, in my opinion, I could be wrong on this, knows or knew of his best 11 and the best system to get the best out of the players that's available, which for me, going into a major tournament is quite alarming. And that's proven with the experiments he's had in midfield. He switched systems midway through the tournament. And I think from an outside looking in as a fan perspective, I thought that was worrying. And we've said it through the tournament. I mean, there's one stat I heard today, or two stats, I think. Kane has touched a ball in the opposition's penalty area once in the past 2 Euros finals. Whether that's true or not, but I thought that was scary.
He touched it once yesterday, so unless he didn't do it at all against Italy,
which is scary. And then out of the 24 teams, we were 19th out of 24 in shots on target per match, and we got through to the final. Let's be honest. We played who we did in a run. We were fortunate with that running, and we did what we needed to do to get past them teams. But ultimately, we've come against again a top team, and we failed. I think we've won 3 times out the last 10 or so of the top 10, which just isn't good enough. And usually you only have to look at our domestic game in the leagues and the clubs that we support in our various leagues. Who's won the Premier League? Man City. They're the best team in the division. Who won the Championship? Arguably Leicester were the best team in the Championship. They've won it. You look at the teams who've won their divisions and won competitions are usually the best team. And it's no surprise that Spain won it. And this is why, for me, going into that final, it would have needed a near miracle for us to beat Spain, because they had momentum, they had performance, and they had something to tangibly grab hold of, where we were hoping, we weren't expecting or thinking, in my opinion, that we were. I think they knew that they were capable of doing it, but they were relying on Spain being poor and us finding a moment to get us over the line. Whereas I look across our leagues and competition winners, usually the best team wins, and it's happened again, and it's no fluke. And this is what, for me, moving forward, we've got to do, because we do have a squad of players who are more than capable of winning these competitions. For me, it's a huge failure. This team should be winning major tournaments with the players that we've got. He's left Jack Grealish out. Jack Grealish and Anthony Gordon's played, 2 minutes? I'm sure Jack Grealish should have possibly played more than 2 minutes. So, and this is why I think decisions have been poor. There's some moments where he's got right, and I'll credit him with that. And I think, they seem to galvanise out of that criticism. But again, we've fallen at the final hurdle. And let's be honest, between us on here and many people listening and watching in, I don't think people are surprised by what happened at all last night. And I think there has to be a major inquest into why the FA might potentially want Southgate to stay on, because we haven't won in 4 major tournaments, and we've been to 2 finals, and not to win one, I think, is poor with the calibre of players that we've got. And I don't see how we can almost beat the likes of Argentina and Spain in the World Cup. I don't at the moment, with Southgate in charge, in my opinion.
In it, look, that's where the manager comes in. In them games where they're so evenly contested between quality, so like last night, Spain and England, you look to your manager to make that difference. I would argue that when we lost to Italy, Mancini won that tournament.
I agree.
That was the difference.
Yeah.
He turned it around. He won that tournament, whereas Southgate's just not got that capability to do that.
And I think we're all on the same page that Southgate's given us a lot of memories, and he's created some real good times that we've all really bought into, probably more so than what we've done with other managers. In my opinion, I think this was a tournament too far for him, and I would be worried potentially Southgate taking on another tournament or two. And I think sometimes change is just needed. Look, Spain have gone down the route of what we did with Southgate. They've gone down the route of employing a guy within the federation who's come up through the levels and has taken that team, albeit with some unbelievable players, but at the same time, some players on paper that you would argue are probably better than them. But what he's done is he's created a mentality and a winning mentality where he's got the best out of the players that are available, and he's playing to their strengths. Whereas in my opinion, I think we've experimented too much in this tournament without really defining of what we're good at doing and our strengths.
So, go on, guys. I was just going to say, at risk of extending the show by another 20 minutes, like where do you guys see us going from here? Because the problem we've got now is it's not like, obviously his contract runs till December. Between now and December, there is another 6 games for England in Nations League games against Ireland, Finland, and Greece in Group B of the Nations League. Like, what do you guys see happening, and where do you guys think we go from here? Because realistically, he's going to take what, probably a week to a fortnight of time to have a break, assess his own situation, decide what he wants to do. And then I'll say 7th of September, we're 54 days away from the next England game. Now, do you go for a caretaker? Do we just appoint a new permanent by then? And again, if it's new permanent, the likelihood is it's Hal Potter or Carsley. My opinion out of this, Southgate shouldn't decide whether he's an England job or not. It's the FA's job to decide if he's in a job or not. But we know full well.
In my opinion, Southgate hasn't earned the right as a competition winner to decide if he stays an England job or not.
Okay, I accept that. I accept that completely. But I hate to say it, Lou, and sadly, you're not the FA. The problem is we all know that the FA want him to stay on. So in this case, it does come down to Southgate. And if Southgate decides to stay on, this is a pointless argument, and hey presto, he's taking us to the World Cup. But in the hypothetical situation that he's like, decides, you know what, in a fortnight's time, I've had enough, I've moved on, I've accepted the the criticism this time has obviously got to him a little bit, and he's like, you know what, don't need this now. It's a freaking short window to then search for a replacement, appoint a replacement, go into competitive games in 54 days' time.
It's like any other club though, and it's a domestic league. You have to look at likes of Brighton, etc., where in Villa, where they've had a succession plan of somebody who's going to go at some point, and in that you've got to know who your next successor is. It's naive, I agree, but I agree with what Jay said earlier. If we are serious about winning a competition, you're going to have to spend a bit of dollar to get the best person out there. And I understand what Gaz is saying, but somebody like a Klopp, for instance, I could be wrong on this. I don't know, but I don't know the guy. But I'm pretty sure any manager would want a World Cup on a CV.
100%.
Here's Lou desperately not wanting to mention Eddie Howe.
No, you know what?
The likelihood is it's Eddie Howe.
Ancelotti. What about someone like Ancelotti?
That'd be great. But this, and again, no disrespect to Eddie Howe at all, Lou, but this is the problem, innit? Like, we all want a Klopp, a Mancini, and Ancelotti. And
why shouldn't we?
And no, that's great. Exactly. We should. But yet the pot that we're pissing in is Hal Potter, freaking Lee Carsley. I don't think it necessarily is. I think that's just the noise around it, where people are putting names in the hat and thinking that's who we can potentially go for. I think to flip it, like we said earlier, some of your international teams in the past have used international as the standard bearer. This is the ultimate of the ultimate. Now, in my opinion, if we're serious about winning a World Cup and the Euros, you do what you can to get Jurgen Klopp, who's out of a job at this moment in time, and get him in. And he might not do it, he might say no, but if you persevere enough and you potentially offer the right package and there's an option of potentially winning a World Cup, it wouldn't surprise me if somebody would take it on for a year. I wish you were right. I really do. But we know full well the FA are dinosaurs that want a yes man that's not going to give them any grief. Look, they're not going to be. They're going to be burnt by Capello, for Christ's sake, and how that failed dismally. Like, this is why since Capello we've been stuck with English managers. Like,
there's a difference between Capello and some of the others, though.
Well, no, because let's be honest, back then Capello was at the top of his freaking game, like winning titles from Madrid and that. Like, Capello was top of his game back then. What I'm saying though is ultimately that FA board are dinosaurs that want somebody who isn't going to give them any grief, who's going to accept a measly £3 million a year to be England manager, which compared to club level management is sod all. And this is why the likelihood is it is going to be, a mid-table PL manager.
Is a different option compared to some of those that we've mentioned in the Premier League or have mentioned in the Premier League because of managing England and know the players inside out. And I don't know about Capello's English at the time. From what I remember, it wasn't great.
No.
I would love Klopp. I think football's moved on a little bit since then. My opinion, and I know what people are saying in the comments that we're getting, for me, I don't know how Southgate's been successful and we haven't won a tournament, or England have been successful by not winning a tournament. You get nothing for finishing second. And I think this is a bit of we've done reasonably well to get to the finals. Don't get me wrong, I'm not criticising that fact, and he's got people together, but it's not a success to finish second.
Do you know what?
It's a hell of a long way from what we've seen before in the last. I mean, Christ, like in my lifetime, in our lifetimes,
we've come a long way, but we're not successful. Success is winning stuff.
I mean, what do you reckon,
Success
guys?
isn't finishing second and being second on the podium or third on the podium. Success is winning. And this is what, with the group of players that we have at the moment in time, those group of players and staff, whoever that might be, that success is defined by winning trophies. And listen, sometimes every so often you might not get it, but I would hope that with the likes of Foden, Bellingham, the likes of Kane, Walker, Rice, a lot of teams in that competition would have easily snatched your hand off for those players. So for me, success is winning. I don't understand why we can define it success by not winning.
It's like saying Man City would have been happy finishing second after years of doing nothing. When they got the influx of great players, it's like, oh well, you know, we've been in Division 3 a few years ago. We should be happy with finishing second. It moves on, it evolves, doesn't it? And
well,
that's where
we won the 90-point trophy, didn't we, Jay? So
exactly.
I mean,
would Arsenal successful finish second in the Premier League this season? No.
What we're looking at then is it won't be this crop of players. It should be the next crop of players that actually win something then, because we had a brilliant crop of players in like 2004, 2006. 2008 and didn't win anything. This squad has got us to the next level of at least making finals. It's going to be the next, give it 10, 15 years, then we might be finally winning something.
And what I will give Southgate credit for, which is what I've said before, is that he's taken us further than what we've done in previous tournaments. Absolutely. There's no doubt in that. That's fact.
By a mile. Yeah.
But what I will say is the next person who comes in has the job on to win the thing now. And that is going to be that is a big thing for somebody to come in to do, because anything less than probably a semi-final or final is going to be a failure, and that's because Southgate and the players have set a bit more of a higher standard. But ultimately, it's still not a success to finish where we are. That person coming in now has to win that tournament to do better than Southgate.
I hope I'm wrong, but the FA aren't going to go foreign. The FA aren't going to go for a top-level manager. They're going to go for whatever the best that England has to offer. And right now, the best is, in my opinion, at international level, no better than Southgate, if I'm honest.
I can see both sides of the argument. I agree with what Lou said, and I also agree with what Chris is saying. And I don't think that you'd like to think that the FA would go and try and get a Klopp. To me, from that point of view, I agree with Lou. You'd like to think that they'll just go and throw everything at it.
I would love that.
But realistically, it's just not going to happen. I really don't think it is. When you talk about the in-game stuff last night, the thing that annoyed me more than anything, do you know what it reminded me of when we scored that goal? We had a 10-minute period where I wanted us to go on and win the game. And the mentality, whether that be from the players or from the manager or whatever, was to drop back and defend what we had. And that, do you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of Mark Hughes at Carlisle in the playoffs. Daft as it sounds. How many times have I talked about that substitution?
Let me get the t-shirt.
Carlisle battered us for majority of both legs. But we had an opportunity when we scored that goal to go on and win the game. And the first reaction from Hughes was to take the guy who created the goal off and bring a centre back on. It's a mentality thing.
Mark Hughes is out of work.
when we scored the goal, they were there for the taking.
Yeah, that
was a 5 to 10 minute period. They were there for the taking. You could feel it. They'd backed off a little bit, and we were pushed up 20 yards up the pitch.
Yeah,
momentum, Jay. Momentum is such a big thing.
Momentum is massive in football, massive in sport. And we just regressed, and we invited them on.
Can I say, am I missing something about Eddie Howe? Why are we so downbeat on Eddie Howe? I mean, Lou has done fantastic for Newcastle, hasn't he? Like, why? Surely he's proved himself to be, you know, if you compare where Southgate came from in management, I mean, surely Eddie, I don't understand why. I think Eddie would be a good appointment for me.
I think selfishly looking at what he's done with those guys at Newcastle, he has transformed the way that we play, the way we're structured, the way that he defends and attacks teams. He goes to the absolute end detail to get everything right. I don't think he would be a bad option at all, because I think he's shown that he can manage some big characters. Listen, not all. Whether he leaves Newcastle at this moment in time, I think is possibly doubtful. But
yeah, I think that is
again,
doubtful.
given the opportunity to manage in a World Cup, I think it's such. Honestly, people might underestimate this. Do not underestimate how big a carrot that is for somebody to manage in a World Cup. That is the ultimate of the ultimate. We talk about Champions League in club football. The likes of Eddie Howe at the moment are not going to be in Champions League football, probably definitely next year and maybe the season next. So to manage a World Cup and manage those group of players and have an opportunity to be in the last four, potentially into a World Cup final, is massive. So I think from Eddie Howe's perspective, I think he's got if opportunity was there, I think he's got a serious decision to make. I think we could do worse. I think, again, without being biased, I think he's probably one of the better options English-wise that we've got.
Yeah.
He probably is the best.
Do I think he's the best option? No, but do I think he's the best English option? Probably yes.
Luke, can I just say as well, I think Eddie Howe is the man before the man at Newcastle, because Newcastle they're going to get to a point where they are competing with City and Arsenal. Eddie Howe is likely to not be that guy. I don't think he's that good. So when it comes to talking about making the decision, I think he will have a thought on, well, you know what? I could have.
Where can he take it at Newcastle from what?
Exactly. I could have 5-10 years as England manager here if I get this right, and I could win a World Cup. So
I think it's a logical move for him to go to England. Being honest, I think we could do a lot worse. And I think, and I think with the players that we've got, I think he would. I think he, sounding harsh on Southgate, I think he'd probably get a better tune out of him. I think you would see a lot more better performances, shall we say. There's question marks over a few things that he does, but I think going forward would be a bit more exciting, and I think we'd take the game to teams a lot more than what we do at the moment. There would be a mentality shift, I think, between Southgate and Howe, which could be quite transitional, but I think the players would quite enjoy that aspect, because our strength on paper is our attack.
What's some of the bad points? What's some of the, you mentioned there, kind of Eddie Howe kind of negatives? What's the negatives with Eddie Howe then? As somebody watches it.
I think sometimes we've been a little bit weak. Sometimes defensively, we were on such a good run, keeping clean sheets and a really solid back four, and when that started to break, it broke. And I think one thing again is that sometimes the balance in centre mid was a little bit edgy sometimes. Obviously, before Tonali got suspended, we were playing Joe Linton, Tonali and Bruno in midfield, and that just didn't seem to work at that time. And I think that was kind of embedding in. And I think sometimes, actually, what I will say is, and it's a bit different with international football, that we probably overplayed a lot of plays in terms of minutes, and we got tired. The way that he tries to play football was very on the front foot, very attacking, and it was basically non-stop. And I think some of those plays were just pretty much running on empty. Now, the only comparison you could argue with that is tournament football, but he's got bigger resources. He's got a bigger squad to probably pick from. So that might not resonate as much in the international scene. But listen, I think he'd do a job. I think it would make sense for him to potentially go to England for his own benefit, like you guys have mentioned before. But again, it depends on the next stage of the Southgate. But my opinion is I don't think he not deserves, but I don't think he warrants that opportunity again, like I said earlier, to decide his own future at the FA and a club. A manager at a club team doesn't decide whether they stay or go. It's the powers at the top that decide that. So I think Southgate, if he'd have won a tournament, I could argue he had a bit more of a case, but even so, the people at the top should make the decision whether they employ a person to take us forward or not the manager.
They can't give it to Carsley. They just can't. Like, we're not Wales.
It worries me. It does worry me, because they love this whole progression, don't they? I mean, and in their eyes, again, in those on the FA board, in their eyes, they will see taking Southgate from the under-21s as a caretaker following the Allardyce debacle, and then running with him and him doing what he's done over the last 8 years. They will see that as a great success. So therefore, in their heads, they will think, hey up, we might be able to do this again. But Lee Carsley hasn't been, he's done all right with the 21s, don't get me wrong, but he hasn't been in the job anywhere near as long as Southgate had prior to him getting the England job. I've got such a negative view of the FA board that I'm just resigned to it being an easy option. And in 54 days' time, when England are in Dublin to play Ireland in the Nations League, right now I just don't know what to think. It's either going to be Southgate with a new contract to take into the World Cup, or potentially I just can't see them acting quickly enough either to get somebody.
Is the Nations League quite helpful for qualification for the World Cup now? Or is it,
no,
separate
it's a separate entity, isn't it? I think, and we got relegated last time around because we didn't take it seriously, even though we did beat Spain. I think actually one of the games.
Imagine they give it to Lampard.
He's a candidate. He's on the list, mate.
I saw him at St George's Park on a video the other day talking to Southgate and whatnot.
His odds go from, I think, 10-1 with some bookies to about 45 and 50-1 with other bookies.
I think I'd go for Uruguay for 5 years.
Yeah.
I don't think
I'd be happy with you on that.
I mean, I had a look at this. I don't know if I've still got the tab open. Let me just quickly check.
That would be mad. They'd be mad.
I couldn't stomach it. I could not stomach that. Mad.
Christ. Just whilst Chris is loading that, should we have a look at some comments then? Thank you very much for everyone who's got involved. Ian, we can't play like that for the next 2 years. Fans won't have it. I think he means England, not Bradford City there. I'm not quite sure. James, England need to just be more horrible. Look at Italy, Argentina. The FA need to grow a pair. And Digler, Eddie Howe came up through the league, so he knows the English game inside out. Rick, though, he's defending Southgate here. End of the day, under Southgate, we've reached 2 finals and a semi-final in the last 3 competitions, bar 66. That is the most successful England team since 66. I don't get the hate. And then Andy, bored to watch all this sideways and backwards ball possession, boring to watch football. Hope he doesn't mean Leeds with that. Andy, please let us know. So yeah, a bit of a mixed bag, like it's always going to be, isn't it? Mix of opinions. Here we go, Chris. You've got it there, mate.
Yeah, so I mean, you can just see it on ASO.
At the top there.
Great, yeah. To be fair, that switched actually because early this morning it was Eddie Howe that was ahead of Potter. But yeah, exactly. I think that's I mean, it's interesting. Mauricio Pochettino is currently out on average the 4th favourite, Thomas Tuchel 5th favourite, Jay's favourite, Frank Lampard is 6th. Then you've got 2. I mean, don't get me wrong, the odds have come a lot shorter on Pep and Klopp, but I think that's just people optimistically throwing money at Pep and Klopp on as far as the bookie's concerned. Then a whole cluster of Ralph Rangnick at 33. Maybe, I mean, I don't know what you think on that shout, but I personally think Ralph Rangnick in the work that he's done with Austria might not be too bad a shout because the way he's got them playing, I'd certainly welcome it anyway.
It's a one that makes sense in international sphere. That's what I would say. I get it. I don't see it happening, but I get it.
Julian Nagelsmann, if only.
Well, God, don't start browning off on Nagelsmann.
The timescale thing's an interesting one again that Chris brought up before.
We don't have much to it.
Well, exactly. And if the timescale wise, I mean, I don't know. Lou probably be able to know more than me on that. But are Newcastle going to play hardball with Eddie Howe? Are they going to be someone? Are they going to say the season's getting closer? Do you know what I mean? It's only 3 weeks. We're only 3 weeks off the start of the Premier League. 3 or 4 weeks off the start of the Premier League season. You know, Lee Carsley is an easy appointment. Graham Potter's an easy appointment. Keeping Gareth Southgate's an easy appointment when it comes to timescales. Eddie Howe probably isn't as easy as those 3.
A couple of things on that, guys. We played our ball with Dan Ashworth, so they're not going to let Eddie Howe go easily.
Fair point.
And also, for me, I'm baffled by why an England manager has a contract running until December when the international major tournament finishes in July.
I did think that was really unusual when everyone was talking about it. I could only imagine it's to factor in the Nations League as well, because obviously that ends by then. But yeah, it is very odd, isn't it? Very odd.
Right, there's still another 5 months to go with no major international tournament. Maybe the contract should potentially be written that it should finish after the international major tournament, and then you decide thereafter. But we don't make the decisions, do we?
I hate to say it, lads, but Steven Gerrard's further down that list as well.
No way,
maybe him and Lampard, there's kind of duo manager.
Yeah. They play themselves in midfield, wouldn't they?
One can stay and one can go.
Good stuff. All right, I think we'll leave it there. I want to thank everybody who's got in touch, added the comments in. If you've been watching along, please do like the video. Also, subscribe to the channel as well. We'll be back next week. No England chat, we promise, next week. But yeah, joining me on the show tonight has been Jason Booker. Jason, thank you very much.
Thank you, mate.
Chris, thank you, mate.
No worries, mate.
Gaz, thank you.
Pleasure.
And Lewis, thank you too, mate.
No worries, chaps.
And a big thank you to Stephen Downs as well, who made an appearance. We'll be back next week. Thank you very much for watching. See you then. Bye-bye.